Hello and welcome to Transformation to 5D. My name is Marie Ramsey. In this session, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the school that we are in and the background to that school. So this is my understanding of it, and some of it may be a metaphor, some of it may be true, I don't know. You make of it what you will, but it helped me to understand things. The way I understand it is Source created. And one of the things that Source created was a soul world. And that soul world are the creators of our experiences. So what the Source basically gave the souls an edict: you are love. Go out and explore what that means. So the soul world creates different schools for learning about love. The school we are in is a school that is more diverse than most. It is polarity, meaning it has positive and negative extremes. So it goes a sliding scale from one end to the other. It is duality. It has the two sides, the positive and the negative. And there is balance somewhere in between. So it is a school about experiencing the extremes and coming back to that balance and harmony in the middle to understand the perspectives of both sides. So our school is learning perspectives. So we start off with a school of fear, and what we're doing is learning different perspectives on fear experiences. Why do we have fear? What makes us afraid? What are we afraid of losing? What does fear do to us? How does it change us? How does it make us behave towards each other? All the different possible experiences. So that's what the school is about. Now the Source is every possible permutation and combination of an experience. It is every possible scenario of what could possibly happen. And so when we choose our life, what we do is we select. The way I was visualized it was, if you think of a crystal ball or a ball of all the different cells within it, and we take one of those, and that's our story, and we have a connection. So in that crystal ball is Source, that is everything that could possibly happen, and we take one of those and we connect our soul to that through a filament, and that becomes our story. And so we live that story in this human life. We take on human form and live that story to understand the perspectives of that one little story. And then as we learn it, through that filament, our experiences go back to Source to fill that cell up with that knowledge and wisdom of that experience. And as Source gains more knowledge and experience from all our different experiences, Source can create more stories, more possible scenarios, and that is how it evolves. So if you think of the initial experiences of caveman were very simple, but as they fed back to Source, Source created more complex stories, and that is how we evolved as a species and had more complex stories available to us to select for lives. In caveman day, we would not have been able to select the life of a CEO of a high corporate organization because it was not available. Those stories were created later because of the evolution of humans and the feeding back of those information to Source, so Source could create more stories for us. So a soul will select a life for lessons. They will choose what lessons they want to learn. Perhaps they want to learn about self-love. Well, every lesson is about self-love. Perhaps they want to learn about not being good enough. And so they will choose the cast of characters that will create that scenario for them. They will choose the identity that will help them on that journey, that story. So what are all the different things we can choose? Well, we can choose a different star sign. And this came back to another thing that they showed me was the grid. That everything is in an energy grid. And that the energy grid holds the framework or the structure of everything together for us. And all the universe sits within that energy grid, and they create an energy grid of our school. And by changing the energy points or putting emphasis on different energy points, they can influence and change the story of our school. So if you think of, there is my story and my reality. There is a bigger story and bigger reality of the world I live in, the time frame that I am currently in, and the things that are happening around there. Some of them are just background to my story, but some of them are other stories that are happening at the same time. And so there is think of it like incredible, it blows my mind to think of the incredible author that wrote all these stories and interrelated and created them so that political events would happen at a specific time that would influence me to make me change my life to go a certain direction. Some of those, so the complexity of it all is mind-blowing, much bigger than a human could possibly ever create or understand. And that is what Source is the genius behind all of that. And the souls work with Source to create all of that. If you read any of Michael Newton's books, he is a clinical psychologist and hypnotherapist who takes people between lives and has gone back into the soul world to ask questions and get answers. And in his research, what he has found is that the souls start off as in a school or a classroom group of companion souls, and they take on different stories and act as characters in each other's stories. You can also look at the work of Robert Schwartz, who looks at soul planning, soul life plans. A lot of this is all shown on my website, transformationto5d.com, where I have put the research of what helped me to understand. But also in my channels, I have gone back and seen the souls trying to work out what their next life is going to be. And it was like an expo, where if they wanted a certain kind of life, they were directed to a guide who specialized in that kind of life, that kind of learning experience. And so that guide would then mentor them through the process of selecting a life and coming down, selecting the people who were going to be the cast of characters who were going to be in that life with them. The other thing that we select is our time of birth. It creates a pattern, whether it be astrology pattern, a horoscope, a numerology, a personality type. All of that fits into the grid. So everything is part of the grid, the energy grid. It is all created as part of the energy grid to predict a life where the main parts of your life are already planned, the main events of your life that will direct you in certain directions. So you chose your parents, you chose your siblings, you chose the main influences in your life. Anytime you have come across someone who has had a significant impact on you, whether it be positive or negative. It may be a mentor that you had for a number of years. It could be someone that you met at a bus stop and just made a comment that completely sent you off in a different direction. All of those were significant casts of characters that you chose for your story. The freedom is the freedom to choose how you learn. Are you going to learn? So in your childhood, you may have had a narcissistic parent. Narcissist empath story is a very common one. The narcissist is shut down to love. They see people as, what can you do for me? The empath is the opposite. They are desperately seeking love. And their belief is, what can I do for you? And so they quite often come together in a story. The narcissist is learning love from the empath. The empath is learning to protect themselves from the narcissist. And so that story is a very common one. The way it was shown to me was, if you think of a little child curled up in an egg, and the little child is crying. In the empath, the little child is crying, saying, I have so much love to give. I just want someone to love me. And they have love leaking out through all the holes of their boundary because they don't know how to protect themselves. They don't know how to set boundaries. They don't know how to say no. They think they have to sacrifice themselves to be loved. They think they're not good enough and they have to work hard, be a people pleaser so that others will love them. On the other side, you've got the narcissist, the little child curled up in the egg. And the egg is so many boundaries around it, and the little child is crying and saying, love hurts too much. And that's quite often the child who grew up with an abusive, violent parent. Quite often when you see a narcissist, you'll say, oh, what was your father like? And you'll say, I was an alcoholic, abusive alcoholic. Because he learnt, or she learnt, love hurts. Don't love people because that makes you vulnerable. And so they built all this protection around them. They want love, but they're afraid of it because it makes them vulnerable and weak, and they don't want to be vulnerable and weak ever again. And so these are the lessons that we learn. The lessons of learning to love each other, learning to set boundaries. The empath-narcissist story is a very common one because the narcissist wants that love from the empath. They want to feel loved, but they can't let them in. But they will teach that empath boundaries. Quite often they'll find that the empath has friends and family who harm them or suck them dry because they're taking their energy away from them. They're always wanting something from them. And so the narcissist will teach them to say no. They'll say, no, you don't have time for that. No, you can't go over to your family 10 times a week and help them out. You have your own life. Because the nature of the empath is they've been trading for love. They've been sacrificing themselves for love. And the narcissist is teaching them to cut off that toxic behavior, those people that are toxic in their life. Now what they do is take it too far and cut off the people who love them, saying that I'm the only one who can love you and protect you because I want you all to myself. And soon the empath finds that they have no friends. Their family is being made distant to them. They hardly ever see them. They're controlled by the narcissist because that's how the narcissist protects them. But as they learn from the narcissist how to protect themselves, how to say no, how to set boundaries, they start using that on the narcissist and saying, I'm not going to do absolutely everything you want me to do. I have things I want to do myself. And the narcissist doesn't like this, because the empath used to be a people pleaser who sacrificed themselves for the narcissist all the time. And now they're saying no. Now, if the narcissist is growing, they'll say having this person's love is worth giving them space, letting them do their own thing. They'll be happy that this person is gaining independence and learning to say no and learning to set boundaries. But many narcissists don't understand that, and they just see it as rejection. They see it as it triggers their fears of, I've got love and now they're trying to take it away from me. And so the narcissist can turn nasty. They can try and become more controlling. They can gaslight the person and say, I'm not the problem, you're the problem. You were always happy to do it for me in the past, and now you're saying no, you won't. Well, that's not good enough. You're the problem. You have to go back to being who you were. And so they'll gaslight the person, saying, you're not allowed to change. No, I didn't say that to you. You made that up. The narcissist gets to know the empath's vulnerabilities really well. And when they turn toxic, they'll use them against the empath to bring them back under control. So they know the weaknesses, they know the fears, and they'll play on that. And that is why the empath will quite often go back to the narcissist again and again and again. And the police don't understand why they go back after they've been hit and beaten up by the narcissist. And the empath says, I deserved it. I upset him. That's because they believe that. Because they believe they're not good enough. And they believe that if they make everyone else happy, they'll be okay. And that they need to be responsible for everything bad that happens in the world. Because that is what they're taught by narcissists, that it's their fault. It's always their fault. So you can see where it becomes toxic, where the empath has to learn that lesson of walking away. Where relationships have a use-by date. Once you've learnt the lesson, if the other person can't change, if they're still needing you to be the old you, and they're not allowing you to grow, then you have to walk away from that relationship. Both parties have an opportunity to grow. We are a mirror for each other. We learn our lessons through our relationships. Perhaps the empath had a narcissistic parent, and that created the environment where they thought they had to be a people pleaser, they thought they had to sacrifice themselves. Perhaps they were just taught culturally by a patriarchy mentality of, you're female, that's your job, to do what the male wants. For many, many hundreds of years, women have been put in that position where they had to keep the male happy, or he could do what he wanted. He could kill them. He could get rid of them. He owned them. They had no legal rights of their own. That was one of the problems of the patriarchy mentality, is women were at the mercy of the man. And if he was a narcissist, then they had to become an empath to survive. And so it's not only the experience of this generation that we're healing and that we're learning, but it's all of the experiences of our ancestors, of our cultures. That's where we inherited a lot of our trauma, from the experiences of the past. And so this life is all about lessons. learning about the different perspectives. This life you might be an empath. Next life you might be the narcissist. Another life you might be the parent that's observing it all and it's breaking your heart. All the different perspectives we feed back into the source, and from that we gain understanding and wisdom. And at a collective consciousness level, we learn that collective wisdom through the source, through all of our experiences. And that is the consciousness that we're aiming for, is to connect to that consciousness of all of our learned experiences, not just our own learned experiences, but the learned experiences of all the other souls, all the other humans that have ever lived. And understand perspective, a much broader perspective than just what we are experiencing in this life. Understand the history of all of the humans that have come before us and why they went through what they went through. It's not about blame, it's not about shame, it's not about guilt or judgment. It's about understanding. Every story has value. We might not like the stories, but they still have value. Because of the duality and the polarity, we have to experience the good and the bad. You can't have a saint without a devil. You have to have both sides of experiences. You can't have an abused person without a perpetrator. Some lives you'll be the abused, other lives you'll be the abuser, the perpetrator. That is just how we learn our lessons. And so when we understand that, we do not hate other people. We understand that they're going through a life lesson, and we look at what brought them to that point, that they could create that kind of harm on another person. What's the fear in their life? What's the pain and suffering in their life that brought them to that point where they could be such a monster? We all have the monster within us, but the story is, what does it take to bring out the monster? What's the pain and suffering and fear that one must experience to bring out the monster? And how do we heal the monster? How do we help them? If you are being invaded by another species or by another tribe, and they're attacking you and killing your family, you want the monster to come out to protect each other. But you don't want the monster to be there when you're visiting a neighbour and going over for a barbecue. You don't want the monster to come out then. We all have these different parts inside of us. We all have the capacity to be all these different roles. Because it's not just this story. We are many stories. We have lived many stories through our past lives. We have many experiences. We have the potential to be any and all of them. And so understanding that, we choose which ones we want to have present at the moment. What are the best parts? What are the best parts of you that are appropriate for this life, to take you on a journey of joy, love and abundance? Is it living in fear? Probably not. So you need to look at, where does the fear come from? What's triggering that fear? What makes you feel not good enough? What makes you afraid of love? What are the things that are limiting you, blocking you from being a well-rounded, balanced, living in love, happy, I am, confident person? What's stopping you from being that? That's your journey. That's your life lessons. And the people around you who trigger you, that's your mirror. When someone triggers you, it's why am I feeling triggered? Why am I feeling jealous? Why do I feel insecure, not good enough? Why can't I be happy for someone who's just won lotto? Why am I jealous and angry that it wasn't me? Because I live in fear and financial insecurity. Why am I jealous that someone is gorgeous looking? Because I don't feel good enough. Where does that voice come from? Probably your childhood. Most voices start in your early childhood, in the first 7 years of where you developed your first experiences. Most of your limiting beliefs, your traumas, your conditioning, your expectations were created in those first 7 years of life and reinforced again and again. You have to be beautiful to be loved. You have to be sporty. You have to be intelligent. You have to be a winner. All of those were created in your childhood. And you thought that you wouldn't be loved if you didn't fulfill those expectations of your parents and the people around you. You thought that you wouldn't be good enough. And so unraveling all of that and working all that out is how we go through our life lessons. That's what the school is. I will learn how to be super confident in one life. I will learn to have no confidence in another life. And then when I find the balance, I know that I stand in my power. I'm not so super confident that I'm arrogant. I'm not so insecure that I'm afraid of everybody and jealous. I am me. And I'm confident in that. And I stand in my power because I'm in harmony and balance with that. I love and accept myself, whoever I am. And that is where we are working towards. This is Marie Ramsey from Transformation to 5D. You will find courses on love and energy on my wisdomoflove.academy. And I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist and trauma therapist. You will find more about my services on www.transformation25d.com. Connect with me if you would like to learn more about how to heal your trauma, how to understand your life lessons. Thank you. Take care. Hello, I'm Marie Ramsey. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, a resource therapist, and a counsellor. I specialise in trauma healing because trauma is the basis of anxiety, depression, and most mental and physical illnesses. It is what blocks us from becoming the healthy, happy person full of love, joy, and abundance. And so it is important to heal trauma in the transformation process. You can book sessions with me if you would like through my website transformation to5d.com. They're available online via Zoom and face-to-face in Brisbane, Australia. I'm also a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner in the Dolores Cannon style, and this is available face-to-face in Brisbane, Australia. It is a process of regressing into past lives, then talking to the higher self, and then bringing in the white lights for healing. It is an incredible experience, the quantum healing process. I am running courses on my Wisdom of Love Academy, and they are available self-paced or via Zoom in groups. In future, I'll be running workshops and retreats in different places around the world. And so if you would like to keep up to date with what is happening, subscribe to my newsletter so I can let you know the latest. I'm also willing to work with other people if they would like me to come and talk in their organisations or to run workshops and retreats with them in partnership. I hope that you are finding this podcast helpful, and if there is more topics that you would like me to cover or questions that you have, please put them in the comments or email them to me so that I can answer that in future podcasts. Together we are creating a healing community that is going to be able to transform into the new world of 5D, of love, joy and abundance. I welcome you to this community, and I hope that you come on this journey with us of transformation so that you too can pass through the portal into the new world. Thank you. Take care.